If you saw my last video, you know that I built a deck to showcase Nebula, but it didn't get into my hand very often. And between the bot matches, just not drawing Nebula early, it's hard to call that video a Nebula showcase. And the build is good, but I hear you guys, and I apologize that it didn't utilize Nebula more. So today's build is going to be designed to do better. I can do better, we're gonna do better. And today I truly believe that we have the best early Nebula build, and I'll give you a few of the reasons why. First and foremost, it doesn't lean all the way in on Nebula. If you don't draw Nebula early, it's okay. It's not going to ruin your game. You still have a primary play line outside of that. Similar to Sunspot, how that's not your primary win condition. Sometimes it will help you win the game, but you can't lean all of your eggs, put all of your eggs. I don't know why you'd be leaning eggs. You don't put all of your eggs into that Sunspot basket. Similar with Nebula. And so for the other reasons, let's take a look at what the meta is in this early season start. A few days ago, I showcased a statistically best deck that was in the game, and the deck is still absolutely crushing it. The deck utilizes a turn 5 Black Bolt to get a huge burst of power on turn 6, with Stature, sometimes Miles Morales, with Hawk, with Enchantress to swing locations, and it's pretty explosive and hard to keep up with in just raw power. If you want to check out that video, I'll leave a link to it in the description below. It's a fantastic deck. It does require a Series 4 card in Stature. It has Jeff in it, but it can be substituted for a few other cards. In addition to that, we're seeing a lot of the really tall decks, or ones that want to utilize a lot of high power, a lot of strong ongoing, start to fall off a bit due to the increase in Enchantress and Shang-Chi viability. We also have a lot of Moon Zoo, or Hitmonkey Sarah counter decks in the mix. So what deck is going to do well into a counter-heavy meta? It's going to be Modok Discard. This point slam deck loves to drop Storm on 3 into Dracula on 4 to easily lock down that location, leaving us free to focus our power in the other 2 lanes. And there's several ways to utilize this. We could do a Nebula into a turn 3 Storm. That way we're at least going to be able to guarantee that it gets a +4 power bonus because they won't be able to play into that lane after it's locked down on turn 3. We previously had Sunspot or Iceman in Nebula spot. However, since we don't typically float very much energy at the end of the game, Sunspot was a bit lackluster, and Iceman's disruption is unmatched, but he didn't really sneak games away. He often resulted in like 1-cube retreats because the opponent just disrupted their playline and they didn't have their ideal play, and so then they retreat and back out and rinse and repeat. So if we run into the popular deck that utilizes Black Bolt, we beg the opponent to help us discard our Wolverine or Swarm to help us spread power across the board. If we run into the Sarah Tech or the Monkey decks, we can look to lock down a lane with Storm, which restricts how large their Monkey can get. And by utilizing Dracula, we're safe from any kind of Shang-Chi or Enchantress counterplay. They can Enchantress or Morbius, but that is just one lane. They have to spend quite a bit of resource in doing that, and we can be sneaking that power into other lanes in the process. Now, as far as replacements for the deck goes, there are several that can be replaced, namely Jeff and Nebula. I would say Modok is core in this style of Apocalypse discard deck, and I don't think I would even attempt to run this version at all without Modok. So Nebula serves as an early game drop that allows us to force the opponent into dropping their early resources there. We can then drop a Storm into another lane, knowing that they're probably not going to play in that location. We can also hide it behind the Storm lane and let it just naturally grow over the course of the game, but it can be replaced with Iceman pretty easily. Jeff is a little bit trickier because he helps us lock down a Storm location if we need just a little bit of extra reach in that lane. And so he can also help us sneak into a locked location like Plunder Castle, where typically we can't play into that lane until turn 6. But he could honestly be replaced with Swordmaster, and you're not going to see a lot of deficit. You're going to get that one additional discard resource. In most games, you're not going to utilize the Swordmaster, but he is there to give you that additional reach, and sometimes it will help you get your high roll a little bit higher. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. All right, first up we have my close personal friend. We have this guy. So unfortunately, I don't know how to read this name, but I have to tell you guys, I know that this is the first game that you guys are seeing, but let me tell you, this is not the first game that we've played. So I recorded 10 games, and I'm actively trying to improve my content. So if you have any kind of feedback or suggestions, definitely leave a comment down below and just let me know what your thoughts are. Of course, I will take them with a grain of salt. I won't be able to action on everything, but I do appreciate the feedback and just you letting me know what works well in my videos, what you would like to see a little bit differently. But I'm actively working on trying to improve my content, and I am now splitting my audio tracks between the game sounds, and my microphone. And I had it set up, but unfortunately I set it to record the game sound twice and the microphone 0 times. It's so bad. I had so many good games that I was so excited about, and then I loaded them into the editing program, and I realized that there was no sound. And I thought about doing just a voiceover on them, but it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like authentic. So we're back to the drawing board. We're playing a few more. Luckily, this deck is very solid. This is a very solid deck. It is the Nebula Modok discard. And the reason it's so solid is because we don't have to rely solely on being able to have our Nebula big every single game. Sometimes we're going to be able to do that, and it's phenomenal. But we don't have to absolutely have that to be able to win. And so sometimes we're going to be able to lock it behind the storm lane. Sometimes we're going to be able to use it as bait to get the opponents to play their cards there while we storm a different location. And there are some games where it's going to be that winning factor by it being able to continue to gain power over the game. So we're going to go ahead and snap into this one. We have our Modok. Apocalypse will be going in at the Eternity range on the last turn. I think we should have the Sanctum Sanctorum locked down. Now, I'm not playing into the Letargia, so they played a Bast, which tells me this is probably a bounce deck. Either that, it's probably a bounce deck. It's not a Cerebro 3 because the Bishop and Angela. And so what we're worried about here is the Hawk play. Them playing a big Hawk here is so detrimental and hard to overcome. Luckily, our Jeff allowed us to steal the Sanctum Sanctorum, I think. I don't think they have anything that can reach into that lane. Now, if they have Hawk, does the Hawk deck? No, this is a counter deck. They have Enchantress, Shang-Chi. If they Shang-Chi here, that takes out this, but we're still 12. If they do something big here, if they do a leader, it copies our Chavez, but that's still not enough. Okay. We do get the retreat, and they stayed for the extra 2 cubes, which is kind of wild with us having the middle location locked down. Let's go ahead and take the 2 cubes. We'll jump over into the next one. All right. Next up, we have Severus. And I don't know about you, but Snape's not my favorite character. I was going to play this as if I was just naturally, where if I snap here and they retreat, no big, we have the advantage. But man, is it disheartening when we finally get like a good setup and we snap on turn 1 and they retreat. So we're going to go ahead and, ooh, they're playing Bast. So it could be a Hawk package. It could be a bounce deck. It could be Cerebro 3. We have several things that it could be. I want to do Calling Wing here, but there's a chance that it discards our Morbius instead of Swarm. Let's go Morbius into mid. We're going to start supporting that location. They do play a Black Widow to make sure that Nebula does not get any bigger. It looks like Calling Wing would have discarded the Widow's Bite, which would have been so funny. Morag is fantastic. I'm okay with Morag. Because these other locations are going to be... this one's going to be locked down. This one becomes a little bit tougher to play in. We're also going to not have very many cards in our hand. So even though we didn't draw here, we're only going to send 2 cards back instead of the 3, so we get a little bit of extra reach because of that. Never mind. I lied. We discarded our Swarms. We're just hoping for the best. We're hoping that we draw back into our good cards. Morag, the Nebula is perfect over in Morag. Wow, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. So we're going to snap here. We're going to storm the left lane. Turn 5 is the last turn that cards are going to be able to be played. They won't be able to do additional things into Morag. Is that our play? I think that's our play. Let's go ahead and go with it. Maybe we get a Dracula. Wow, so they play a Mysterio, so they stop our Nebula from growing. We don't know where the real one is. I would assume it's probably mid, but it honestly could be anywhere. Could be in Morag to help them win that one, even after it starts soaking. We just don't know. We don't get a Dracula, but we do get Lady Sif. We have Lady Sif. We have a Swarm, so we can play into Morag. This will buff up by 1. It just really depends on where they play this turn. If they put anything into Morag, then we might be in trouble. If not, then I think we're okay. Oh my gosh. Now, if the real Mysterio is in Kiln, we're in trouble again. Yeah, we're in trouble. The real Mysterio being here, that just opens us up too much. It all comes down to where the real Mysterio is. Anywhere but mid is fine. I think they put it into Kiln, but we have to see if it's it or not. lock it in. They haven't locked in, so maybe it's not. Maybe they're hoping that we retreat. They do end up retreating. So I'm guessing the real Mysterio was in Morag as a way to help support that location and get it just a little bit over that edge or that hump. If the real Mysterio was here, I don't think they would have played both of these resources. I think they would have played some over into Morag to help spread that power across the board. We will take the 2 cubes. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Sinclair. And I'm so excited because we are now getting some non-bot players. I went on a spree after messing up my recording where it was just bot after bot after bot. And that is so demoralizing. It's like, especially when you get your Nebula and it's against the non-real player and you can't really showcase it. So they play Jeff into the right lane. I go ahead and play mine into the vault. Ooh. The last location is Crimson Cosmos, which is honestly not terrible for us. We're gonna be able to discard our swarm. We could do our Modok over there. We could do these 3 swarms. They're gonna be pretty restricted in how many times they can play into the Crimson Cosmos, and our Nebula is just going to profit. They have the Mr. Fantastic from Camp Lay. It's the gray border, so I assume it's from Camp Lay. We now get our Dracula, which is beautiful. Do we think they retreat if we snap? I really, like, we're very confident here. We have all of the tools necessary to win. I'm very confident, but they might retreat. We're gonna go ahead and play it regular. We're gonna do the Dracula into the vault. We will do Modok, and then we have swarms plus our Chavez to be able to play on the board. Oh, the Polaris is big. They pull our Nebula out of the Crimson Cosmos and into the vault, and so now they can play a card there. But after this turn, it will continue to grow. Unfortunately, we already have our Dracula there, and so we don't necessarily need it to, but it can nonetheless. Let's go ahead and do the Modok into the Crimson Cosmos, just in case they get any kind of weird ideas. I think this is a Silver Surfer deck. The Sarah does support a Silver Surfer deck, which means they can't really play anything additional into the Crimson Cosmos. And so we should have a very easy win here. This is going to continue to get bigger. The Dracula lane, they just abandoned it because we have the big resources here. And so now we can just Chavez, swarm, and that should be fine. Sarah makes sure that they can't do any kind of counterplay, so like a Shang-Chi can't be played in Crimson Cosmos. The Silver Surfer, so like a Brood and a Silver Surfer, is going to buff this lane up just a touch, but not enough. A Maximus and a Silver Surfer, again, it will disrupt what our Dracula... maybe they try that. Maybe they try the Maximus and the Silver Surfer to make us draw into additional bad resources. But our Nebula continues to grow, so I think that's going to be our padding. Oh, no, the Killmonger. Wild. Okay. I did not have them pegged for the right deck at all. This is a Hitmonkey deck. Just down to the core. I'm really surprised that they stayed here for this one. I think they just wanted to let us know that they had the Killmonger, they had our Nebula counter, but the Apocalypse is just going to be too big in mid, and our swarms being free are just so versatile in the Crimson Cosmos. So we are going to go ahead and take the 2 cubes. Let's jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Raistlin 86. The first location is Clintar, which is not fantastic for us. We can play our cards there. It doesn't necessarily hurt us too much, but it is what it is. Let's go ahead and do our Jeff. We're going to copy the Jeff. Even if we end up discarding the second one, that helps us buff up a Morbius. It helps us buff up a Morbius, and which we definitely want. They Scarlet Witch in Kunlun. So now any cards that move there will get +2, aka the Jeff himself. Let's go with Storm in the Cloning Vats. Scarlet Witch that early could very easily be a Cerebro 3 deck, and I don't want them to be able to copy their 3 powers, their Cerebros over and over and over again. Players, okay, never mind. Not a Cerebro 3, it's just probably a good value deck, maybe a counter deck, could be a Sarah Tech counter deck. We do get Morbius here, which is good. Let's go with Jeff ×2. We'll do Modok. We'll do Morbius into the flooded lane. That way we can continue to get extra power there. Even if they outpace us this turn, we can still gain a little bit by discarding additional cards. We know that we have our Modok to utilize to discard at least 3 cards, depending on what we draw. They have the Hawk, which is interesting. They just abandoned the flooded location. Now, unfortunately, we draw Nebula too late this game. That's okay. It's okay. It happens sometimes. We are not going to play Modok into Xandar. That would put Modok within Shang-Chi range, and I don't want to do that. We don't want to play. We don't want to play with that game. Let's see what they play into Xandar. Ooh, they play Spider-Man. What kind of deck is this, my friend? So the Korg is beautiful. It's huge value. What kind of deck are you running? They could have maybe a Doc Ock, or they could have maybe a Doctor Doom. They could have maybe a Captain Marvel. I think we're okay with all of those, though. Oh, we did grab initiative with the Wolverine bouncing into mid, which we did not want. We didn't want to put any cards that are above Shang-Chi range, just kind of out in the open like that. We're going to go ahead and abandon this right lane. We're going to do Jeff, Apocalypse, and we have the Wolverine, the Modok. We might lose to a Shang-Chi play plus another, like a Shang-Chi plus something else. There's the Shang-Chi, unfortunately. I was hoping we didn't maintain initiative there. So the Shang-Chi plus Zabu, we moved our Jeff over. He got the +2 from Kun Lun, giving us just enough power to overcome what they played. Oh my gosh. We'll take luck sometimes. That one wasn't a Nebula game, but that was a fantastic Jeff game. That is showing Jeff's versatility, which is why I really like him in this deck. And you see him cropping up in a lot of decks because he's just really cheap, versatile resource that can be used flexibly whenever you need him. And so let's go ahead and take the 2 cubes. We'll jump over in the next one. All right, next up we're playing Xin. The first location is the Daily Bugle. We have our Nebula, which is phenomenal. I really like playing Nebula into the right lane, the unknown location, because then they have to make the decision: do they risk doing a bad trade over in the right lane and getting capped out with something like Space Throne, or do they let Nebula start scaling? We know that they have Shuri thanks to the Daily Bugle, and so they could be running Vision. There's a lot of things they could be running. Let's do the Lady Sif. We do have our Modok, which is big. If we can draw into Morbius is going to be phenomenal. Morbius or Dracula, honestly, would both be fantastic in Quantum Realm. Because we already have our discard package pretty much locked down. We just need a way to get it that little bit over the edge. Storm is interesting. What lane do they Shuri in? They Shuri into Daily Bugle this turn. Let's use Storm on the Quantum Realm. They Shuri into the Daily Bugle lane. They're going to do something like a Captain Marvel, a Vision, is what I imagine they play here. Now, we have our Modok. That's really our... Wait. This is tough. Do we do the Dracula to be able to discard this later? I think we have to do Modok. We have to get rid of the Dracula. You hate to see it, but that's what we're going to do. They're going to play here with like a Captain Marvel, a Vision. I'm actually going to do Modok into the Lechugia. The reason I'm going to do that is I don't think they're going to play directly. I think this is going to come down to like a Vision or something that moves into the flooded lane. And I want to be able to reduce the power of their Lizard with just the Swarms. They do a massive Red Skull. Okay, well, that's unfortunate. That is not what I thought they were going to play. So 16... So 22, 23, 24, 25, plus the 9. I mean, if they do a Taskmaster, I think we win. If they do a Captain Marvel, we win. Taskmaster, we win. Taskmaster plus Titania, we should be fine. Go ahead and lock it in. I think we're okay with just the 2 power in the Storm lane, which was a scary call. Usually you want to support that location, but knowing that the follow-up to Shuri is always going to be in that lane now, it became much easier to navigate. Look at that 7 power Nebula. That thing is huge. They do end up retreating. I'm guessing they realized we had just a little bit too much reach with our Apocalypse for them to be able to successfully navigate that last turn. Let's go ahead and take the 1 cube and jump over into one more. All right, next up we have Slew Shoe. The first location is Atlantis. We're not going to get the Atlantis bonus. Like, very rarely are we ever going to be able to stick just one card in location and call it good. We do have Morbius, which is going to be great in the Onslaught Citadel lane. Let's do Jeff first, because I want to get a feel for if they maybe have a counter deck. No, they're running a discard deck as well. Okay, so they get the Morbius. We're okay with that. That is something we're fine with seeing. So now it comes to a Morb off. It's Morbin time for both of us. Who can Morb better? Probably them. Our hand doesn't look fantastic. We don't have our Swarms. We don't have our Apocalypse. So we don't have just that rapid repetition of cards to discard. But holy moly, they definitely out-Morb us. In the Morb battle, they win. Oh no. Okay, well. All right, how do we ever financially recover here? We have the Dracula. They have a Dracula in Atlantis, which is scary. Scary. Let's do our Modok. They're going to do their Modok. And it's just this back and forth of just failure for me. That Mystique, having both of those is so rare. Like, a discard deck, don't get me wrong, I don't think this is good. A discard deck very rarely is going to have... Oh, beautiful Moon Knight, my friend. A discard deck is very rarely going to have these resources. It's good enough to have your Morbius, but on top of that, to also have the Mystique is so wild. They discarded Apocalypse once. He'll get discarded one more time. He gets the Dracula bonus here. I think we're gonna try something cheeky. We're gonna do Chavez into mid. This is also gonna discard here, which I think will give us this lane because it's gonna be 20 power. I don't think they beat 20 power. It just depends on if they can get enough reach. I don't know. They might be able to. Let's see. A Modok here is scary, yeah. Okay. So Modok hits the Swarms and the Apocalypse. Their Dracula may pull into a Swarm. So we still win the right lane though, right? And it pulls into a Swarm, which is so unfortunate. They took a calculated risk. They gambled that the Modok discarding the Swarm was going to help them win this lane, and that they'd be able to win one of the other ones. It wasn't even a 50-50 coin flip. It was a 33% chance of the Apocalypse, a 66% chance in our favor that it would hit the Swarm. And so I'm glad that it did. With that one, with the mirror match out of the way, I know that last game didn't showcase Nebula, but sometimes the deck doesn't use or doesn't need Nebula. And so overall, a sample size of 60 games, I had a 65% win rate with an average cube gain of 0.56 cubes per game, which is not too shabby. We will absolutely take it. Thank you guys for being here. How are you enjoying the start of the season? Are you seeing a lot of Galactus in the meta? How's Nebula treating you? Let me know in the comment section down below. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. This has been TLSG. Later, guys.